you've essentially come full circle.
Governments that get lazy, they get complacent.
New York City, what it's been through, what it is today.
The filth, the garbage that was collected, the corruption that occurred there.
Bedrock concept of safety being the foundation for a prosperous society.
Sirens, a lot of commotion, helicopters whirling overhead.
How stressed out all of us were.
New York City was dead.
Are they all wrong?
New York City is still a great city.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Culture Clash podcast, where typically a Russian American will discuss and debate some of the hot news topics from the news from the prior week. But today we once again have a special episode from Jeddah, Saudi Arabia. So we're here with my dad. We're going to be discussing his life experience growing up in New York City, of course, one of the most iconic cities on the planet, going through his experience, work experience, military experience, how that helped him to travel all over the world. And then again, compare what's happening to New York City these days to the broader context globally, and then of course to the Middle East and Saudi Arabia. So looking forward to that conversation. So welcome, Dad.
Thank you, son.
Good to have you on.
Wonderful to be here.
Excellent. Can you just provide an introduction on yourself, your life experience, just bit of that.
I'm a product of a New York City upbringing. My mom traveled here from Puerto Rico. My dad came from Ireland, and they both connected in New York. And me and my sisters lived there and grew up and had a pretty interesting upbringing. Don't want to get into too many of the details. But I think it was a classic New York tale. Things weren't exactly right. Things weren't easy. And we had a can-do attitude. We had a New York spirit that we could overcome just about anything that's put in front of us, if not anything that's put in front of us. But with that being said, I enlisted in the U.S. Navy at a young age of 18, right after high school. Following that enlistment, which I did have an opportunity to travel and really get a taste of what the world had to offer. Wonderful experience. I think everybody should go through mandatory military engagement, at least 2
Well, you and I will discuss this.
Yep. At least 2 years. I think society would benefit from everybody. I think those societies that do have those requirements do give it an experience to an individual that builds character, builds responsibility, and so forth. But when I returned, I got into sales. I've been in sales from my early 20s all the way through even today. I'm always selling. I'm selling myself. I'm selling my country. I'm selling my family. I'm always out there trying to meet new people and engage them wherever I can. So my New York City upbringing, I think, is typical in that there's always a blend or a mixture. I don't think there's any homogeneous way to look at New York City, just from the melting pot. Say that's just a meeting point for people from all over the world. We've traveled as a unit growing up. Wonderful son, Michael. I've got an adorable son, Matthew, at home.
I've got a grandson now too.
Got a grandson, his beautiful wife, Danielle. They have a child together, brand new. Lindsay, she's out there out in the western part of the U.S., doing extremely well. I'm engaged to a beautiful woman, and we have 4 other children in the house. Jake, gifted child, Sean, Rachel, Tom, all really good, solid people, young people, vibrant people. So altogether, it's just really a wonderful experience. My life, I could write a book In fact, I started to write a book.
I remember you didn't finish it.
It may be many volumes deep. So just getting through one chapter has taken the better part of 15 years. So,
Hopefully, chapter 2 is maybe done a little bit quicker so you can finish the book.
well, I need more time, and I got to dedicate more time to that. So,
Sounds good. Excellent. I think, again, we want to hone in on a number of those things that you mentioned. So, again, you mentioned the international travel. You mentioned, obviously, New York City. So, what we really want to understand, I think, for the audience, again, New York City is probably the most iconic city on the planet, referenced in the most movies, TV shows, the Seinfelds of the world. How many different movies, feature New York City? Everybody knows about it. So, could you speak to, given you lived in New York City for so long, the changes the city's undergone over time? So again, you were born there in the 60s, 60s to 70s through the 80s. What was that like? And if you could talk, to us about, New York City over time through your lifetime.
well, just like any great city, and New York City is one of the greatest cities in the world. It's a cyclical environment where the rise and fall, depending on administration, depending on governance, occurs. So to look at New York City when I was growing up was a really bad place. It was written with crime, strikes. Every public servant was on strike at some point in the 70s. Um, the filth, the garbage that was collected, the corruption that occurred there. It was a really bad vibe. In fact, I think that some newspaper headlines even suggested New York City was dead. Okay.
I've seen this.
Yeah, and what it took was an administration that was dedicated to public safety, because in the root of all great cities is a sense of public safety. If you don't have it, there's just no way you could flourish in commerce, in family life, interaction. The communities would all suffer if there wasn't this level of security, this sense of security by the public. So what we're seeing now, not to truncate about 40 or 50 years into 3 minutes, is a really poor showing of where the city is today. And it's reverted back to like that cyclical period. The cycle is back to where it was in the 70s, late 60s through the 70s. And it's unfortunate. And at some point here, like I am fond of the new mayor, Mayor Adams. I think he's a hardworking person, a hardworking man, and that wants to do right by the city. So
He's in a bit of trouble now, though, isn't he?
well, he's into a little bit of trouble. I think President-elect Trump is looking after him, has showed him support. These type of things when you're not towing the party line does tend to have repercussions. So, sometimes you just look back and see what the motivations are. And you could see that, this is just another example of incompetent government going after an individual because he had a different idea. He said something differently. So I don't want to get it too much into the weeds with his issues that he's faced with, but certainly nobody believes the charges to begin with, or really discounts them as being anything relevant.
You spoke to the changes, what New York City is going through now, that you've essentially come full circle through this cycle from the 70s, which was chaotic, crime-ridden, filthy, to now New York City being chaotic, crime-ridden, and filthy. What went wrong? What do if you were to say as a longtime New York resident, yeah, what happened?
I think it's not only unique to New York. It's throughout the world. It's throughout um, governments that get lazy, they get complacent. They stop doing the things that matter to the average citizen. They insult the intelligence of their. We're subjects to U.S. government. We're citizens of that. of the government or the city administration. And I think it's the ineptitude based on their inability to solve problems or tackle problems, because as we know, politics, it's a full spectrum. And coming to conclusions or making decisions aren't isn't necessarily having to agree on every aspect, but to ignore the aspect and to ignore the issues where they cannot come to a consensus or move forward, really becomes a situation of laziness, of not solving, understanding the problem and not solving it. And I think a lot of it is just identifying what that problem is. And many times the lazy way out, as you see that in local government as well as federal government and worldwide governments, is to just let the status quo continue. Throw more money at it where money doesn't exist. Let's just throw more money at it, and that's going to solve the problem. It takes work. It takes work to make a great society, to build a great society, and to have it last. It takes a lot of work, and it takes foresight, and it takes um, uh, smart individuals, leadership to do that.
So what are some of those policies? I mean, like, so you identified that bad government leads to some of these things. You know, what was some of it specifically? So is that the obviously the quality of the mayor, certain policies, certain, tolerances to whether it's crime. Obviously, we've seen in certain cities decriminalization of certain types of theft, all those things. Does that play a role, from your vantage point, in aiding and abetting some of these problems?
Well, it's actually the impetus of why it's all occurred. You could have a stable government, local administration for a span, and then what happens? Complacency sets in, and they say, "Well, let's decriminalize theft up to $1,000."
Which was done in California.
It was done in California, and it was entertained elsewhere as well, without really thinking about the unintended consequences, the repercussions from such action. Okay, so when that occurs, what do you think will happen? Well, um, as we see now in hindsight, although you could have predicted it, but in hindsight, we could say that citizens are leaving that community, businesses are leaving that community, and the level of degradation has only increased because it's unabated. The people in charge are lazy and don't want to fix it. And New York City, not to the extent of California necessarily, but offering zero bail for criminals, putting them back out in the street. This unabated illegal immigration issue, as though a crime a crime caused by a U.S. citizen is the same as a crime caused by somebody illegal. So you really undermine the pinning of that community. Those two crimes, although they're both crimes that they were identical, one committed by an illegal alien and one committed by a U.S. citizen, they're not the same crime. The illegal alien shouldn't have been in our country. And that respect goes to any other country, whether an American is committing crime in another country illegally, entered into that country to commit that crime. It's a double crime, and to dismiss that as being the same thing and let it go unabated for years. As you see in hindsight, the election had consequences, and the president-elect Trump is going to usher in a new level of concern for the safety of the citizens. And you see great societies do that in order for that society to thrive. They have to thrive in a level of safety and understanding of community, of comradeship, and without it, it's just chaos.
And I think that's a perfect segue. And I think you mention again this bedrock concept of safety being the foundation for a prosperous society. Whether it's a prosperous New York, prosperous United States of America, prosperous any country, city, anything like that, safety. The capacity to, again, go anywhere unimpeded, be willing to invest your money, be willing to, visit the place, all of that. I think that's an excellent segue. So compare and contrast what New York has been through, your experience living through there with, again, the vast experience you've had traveling to, many other parts of the world. So we traveled together in Latin America as a family. We traveled together, you and I, in the Middle East. Obviously, Europe, we traveled as a family, Africa, Asia. Talk us through some of those comparisons. New York City, what it's been through, what it is today, and then some of these other major cities.
Well, New York City is still a great city in the poorest sense, in the downtrodden sense, all the way to its greatness, and hopefully back again. That it'll thrive once more. It's not difficult for that to happen. For Phoenix to come and rejuvenate, and bring a sense of stability and order and safety to New York City, but around the world, wherever we travel, that's always on the list of destination, or the checkoff list of what where you want to go in the world when you travel. You want to spend money. You want to take your family to a destination. You want amenities. You want things to keep them occupied. You want things to broaden their senses. So whatever the reason is to go on holiday, I think the underlying current is public safety. You don't want to go into a war zone. You certainly, I don't believe Ukraine is on the list of any popular destinations today, and neither is the Gaza Strip. It's not. It's the perception that there's no order, and most people then flock to what they know. They flock to Disneyland. Disneyland year over year is a destination for millions of people. And why? Because it's a contained city, and all the activities are in this contained city with the amenities, the activities, the lounging at the pool, the seeing the Epcot, the artificial experience, the experience of the world. You could say that you had Taco Bell and now you had Mexican food. I mean, how ridiculous is that? Uh, so so people do that. People go to the Caribbean where it may be unstable in some countries, or in parts of Mexico, and they go to a all-inclusive resort. And I just don't understand that, but we've experienced that as well, and we make sure that we add in the elements of the culture. If you cannot get out and experience why you're there and why it's beautiful, who built this, why they built it, what sacrifices that they've made to build it, then I think you're missing a big part of growing in this world. The world is there for to enjoy and to experience. So get out of the compounds or the enclaves of your destination, and experience life as it is for the people that live there. And I think that is where um, safety has to be at the top of the list.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, comparing it to, we've been to London, for example, another major tourist destination. We've traveled to Germany, to Mexico. I mean, a lot of different places. You know, is the New York experience something that, again, you would say you've seen in a number of other cities internationally? What is that comparison to some of those other major cities?
Well, I could only compare New York City as a resident there. I was never a real tourist to the city, although now that I live in Pennsylvania, I do frequent it, and travel there. But I don't consider myself a tourist when I get there. But when you look at that as the overarching comparison with New York and European cities and other cities around the world, the underpinning and the issue really becomes, um, are the citizens comfortable? Are they safe? Are they thriving? Are they proud? Everybody's proud of their country. Everybody's proud of their families. But there are things that you worry about when you go abroad, and that's why you have the different options that are available to you. So if you go to Latin America, you go to Europe, go to Middle East, Africa. You want to make sure that the things that are important to you, you get to see. And quite frankly, if safety is not at the top of that, then you may be disappointed about your trip. You know, uh, cleanliness comes into town. It becomes a factor because if safety is ignored, then other aspects of society is ignored. Then the trash is not picked up. Then it's dirty. Yeah, and then it's smelly. Um, it's just it's terrifying at night. You don't want to.
You had this experience in London, right? Where, yeah, why don't you tell them about that London trip and again how the lack of safety or perception of lack of safety impacts the quality of the experience.
Well, and London is a beautiful, beautiful city. It's one of the great cities of the world. But when we arrived there, it was just a month after the subway. Believe it was the underground bombing. That
The tube, I
the tube, or yeah, their subway system or transportation system. And when we arrived at the airport, about a month after that, we get to the hotel, and we turn on the telly, okay, if I may use a British word. We put the telly on, and
demonstrating your cultural
I'm
expertise.
expanding right here.
There you
I'm expanding. So
go.
we put on the telly, and there's a special bulletin, news report, sirens are
You
blaring.
gonna try an accent as well, or you leave
No, no, no.
probably for everybody's benefit?
We should just leave the accents out of it. I have trouble with my own New York Southern accent.
That's a good point.
So we have so we're there, and we hear outside a lot of sirens, a lot of commotion, helicopters whirling overhead. And what happened was we were in the neighborhood where they cornered and captured the perpetrators. I don't know if they ever got convicted of it, but perpetrators of the bombing there in London. Now, that in of itself is not, the biggest worrisome, but it does open up your senses. You want to be alert to the possibility of something like that happening again, or the pickpocketer that comes up behind you and takes your wallet, and now you're on vacation and you're without money, or you're without, they steal your room key, and now you got to go through so many gyrations, or you even get rolled, or you lose a kidney in some parts of the world because you're there on vacation. These are the things you don't want to deal with.
Sure.
You don't want to be involved
Want
in.
both your kidneys.
You wake up in a bath of ice, and so while we were in London, there this occurred. They cornered, they captured the perpetrators there. But we were getting on a bus a couple of days later, if you remember.
Of course, I remember.
Okay, so we get on the bus, and we're there together as a family, and we're going down, and one stop, a young man comes on the bus with a Parker, and a Parker is, I guess,
Short shirt, something like that.
no, no,
Heavy coat.
it's a heavy coat.
Okay.
A Parker is, I don't know if that's what's called anywhere else, but that's a heavy coat, winter coat designed for the Arctic. Okay, when you see the guys with the hood,
Ski jacket.
oh yes, even more extreme weather, I believe. But anyhow, it just set off my own internal risk mechanism, my safety level, that somebody's wearing a jacket, a coat like that in August. So he enters the bus, and fortunately, nothing happened. But we immediately got off the bus, if you remember that.
I do.
Okay, and you and everybody was asking why, why are we getting off the bus? And I just said I didn't have a good vibe. I didn't like that. I didn't, and that's an anecdotal issue that is probably not universally happening. Uh, but the sense of security was violated. My sense of security was violated, and so I took action that way. It didn't alter our trip, and our ultimate destination, I believe, was Norway at that time. We went through Scotland then, but you don't want to experience that because that may change your opinion. It'll alter your opinion. Would you return? Would you have apprehensions about returning to the place? So I think that that experience alone just tells a lot.
I was gonna say, I mean, I recall, I was probably, what, 9 or 10 at the time, but definitely I remember how stressed out all of us were in London as that part of the trip, and then what a relief it was to go to Norway where it was, comparatively very peaceful, tranquil, all that, and the same in Scotland. And how, again, that one perception, that one, experience of having that lack of security, unfortunately did, put a damper on a trip to what is a world-class city. And again, London is an incredible place. But again, that safety element that you mentioned is so critical to enjoying the experience. So, yeah, I think it's an excellent point. And again, just to very quickly defend the guy in the park, I've been to London over the summer, and sometimes it can be pretty chilly. I don't know about Arctic chilly, but London's not the warmest weather out there. So
Yeah, and this is our own internal mechanism that gets set off. That may have not, unlikely affected anybody else on the bus. They probably didn't recognize it or fear it or have something that they thought was connected to it. So that's understandable. It just it rose too high on my threshold, maybe because I know too much, or maybe I just fear too
or
much.
you've just seen.
Yes, where it's involved in something like that.
Yeah.
And if I remember, it was post attack on the U.S. That that occurred. So these kind of things you just worry about it being prolific in a region. So you take precautions.
Sure. Yeah, I think that's, again, that safety point so important. So with that, again, London, some of these other major cities, US, we talked about, compare that to the Middle East. So again, the audience obviously wouldn't know. They have been traveling with us for the last 3 years, but around this time, we like to go somewhere in the Middle East. So again, I've been living here for the last 8 years. You come over to the region, we go somewhere. It was Egypt first, then it was Istanbul and Dubai, and then this year it's Saudi Arabia. So Middle East, compare that experience, the Londons, the New Yorks, those typical tourist destinations, and then your experience here in the region.
Well, it's with great fondness I express my appreciation and certainly our ability to travel here. This here has been a wonderful, wonderful trip. Not unlike our other trips that we've taken the last 3 years, but it was an eye-opening trip. Uh, it was the blossoming of the kingdom, I believe, to the outside world. And it's welcoming, and the I appreciate their hospitality and what they've shown both of us in terms of a great culture, great food, uh, uh, great amenities, great destinations. We've enjoyed the areas that we visited just as much as going to the pyramids or seeing the pyramids in Egypt or the sites in Istanbul or even going to places like Paris and the wonderful things that these major cities offer. I think the difference here is that we're on the precipice of a new beginning, a new opening, a new awareness about what Saudi Arabia, what the kingdom is all about, and they've convinced me um, how wonderful this place is, and certainly one that I look forward to returning to in some years from now. So,
You already put a date in the calendar, right? You're planning on coming back?
well, we spent time. We came here and we came with a purpose to go diving in the Red Sea. That's one of the wonderful things that they offer. It's one of the best diving sites in the world. Must be about the top three in the world, comparable to the Great Barrier Reef in some ways. We've been on both sides of the Red Sea. A number of years ago, we were in the city of Hurghada to do diving. But the sea is a great place that allows for a lot of different activities, and you have activities that we didn't even go to. We didn't go up north. We didn't go to the south.
Didn't go to Riyadh.
We didn't go to Riyadh.
Yep.
We centered here in Jeddah, and we actually took a train up to Medina and felt the tranquility of the place. It's really a special feeling when you go there. Um, and you see a lot of things are being built around tourism. So the mosque has been there for quite some time. I don't know the date of when it was built.
We'll look it up for the
We,
audience.
we'll look it up. But the accommodations around it was less than 2 years old, and you can see the effort being made to share that which is priceless to the world. They want to share it to the world and want to make it welcoming, which I think the perception of Westerners or people around the world may be the opposite of that. And what we found was the hospitality, the love, the expression of gratitude was was second to none, and that experience in Medina was a very very real one, where you could feel the energy of tranquility, knowing that this is a spiritual place. So so when you combine the trip into the old city, the old city is going through a facelift. There's historical value in restoring the old city, where you had Ottoman occupation at some point there, or dominion over the city of Jeddah, and you have an entry point for many people around the world.
Pilgrimage hub and everything.
Absolutely. So they came through that city year after year, to make their Hajj, and so that aspect of it, to show it, to showcase it, you know, um, we've had experiences in Jerusalem where where we visited some of the most holy sites, and it's that level of tranquility and respect and honor that you give to uh, to that. So I really enjoyed it. Plus, what they're offering to the world. Come see, come experience. You're welcome here, and to that I give a lot of kudos uh, to the kingdom.
So I think you hit on the again in your intro and then talking about Saudi Arabia. So, coming from your background, all American, you've got the military experience, you have traveled the world, but basically you're American through and through, right? You're still living there. You may be half Irish, half Puerto Rican, but you're American through and through. Compare this experience we've had in Saudi. So again, I may have been coming here for a long time over the last 8 years, but it's my first time in Jeddah as well. And obviously your first time in the kingdom. So, what were your initial impressions before coming here? What notions may or may not have been dispelled? And what was it like traveling around as again, all-American, guy going around Saudi Arabia? Because I'm sure people have, preconceptions around that. So can you talk to that?
Well, the preconceptions is what everybody shares. Okay, so regardless if you're coming to the kingdom, or what your first impression is of the kingdom based on news reports in the media and so forth, uh, um, it's not so much different than the preconceived notions of going to places like Colombia or Brazil or Mexico, European cities. You had this this sense of it's fear of the unknown. So you don't what you don't know, and on top of that, what you do know is fed to you by other sources. Those other sources being the media. So, um, so I don't want to discount anybody's fear that has built up over the years and not knowing what the kingdom is about. It was really uh, shrouded in secrecy. Okay, I think you mentioned about visas. Visas have just become available.
It's a brand new thing.
That's right.
We spoke to Khaled yesterday. He called it the Big Bang.
The
Saudi Arabian Big Bang.
The Big Bang.
The beginning of everything.
Well, we have other ideas of how that beginning of everything.
Oh, that's a whole nother conversation.
That's a whole different.
Yeah, so we'll have you back on and we'll talk through that with Vlad as well. Yeah.
But the concept is true. You know, if you're not open to the world doesn't can't see you. So they see the actions of individuals or the media or governments warring against themselves and against others, and your impressions are made that way. You know, you hate to say that. You know, is Ukraine a viable destination, vacation destination today? Or was Vietnam a viable destination in the 70s, 60s? No, it wasn't. So not understanding, you know, what you don't know probably led to these different ideas people have. It's come full circle. It's just come full circle, and what you have to do is um, see if Saudi Arabia fits your checklist. If you like mountains, there's mountains here. Experience new mountains. I believe there are purple trees here in.
You haven't seen him yet? I haven't seen him yet either, but
I know. This is what I found out yesterday.
yeah.
There's a lake in the middle of the desert. Okay, I don't know how big this lake is.
Khaled said he could take boats out on
You
it.
could there's boats on it.
That'd be a big lake.
So, so if you like lake, maybe lake fishing, I don't know what the fishing is like. We enjoy diving together, so diving is an option here. We like cultural situations, old cities, trying to get a sense of what it was like, you know, 100, 200, 500, 1,000 years ago. You look at the great pyramids of Giza, and you just wonder how those blocks. Forget about the TV shows, but how those blocks get up there, you know, um, and that's fascinating to me. The city of Luxor with all its grandeur, you know, every society, every country has that element. So you want to make sure that when you check off your list of things to do or what you want to accomplish, uh, consider Saudi Arabia, consider the kingdom. I can't say anything negative about the people. The people here really made it a wonderful experience. We've encountered people from all walks of life, from all over the world. We the train ride to Medina. If we didn't see uh, peoples from places
United Nations.
you probably can't even pronounce the country's name. Okay, all traveling together, all giving homage to one another and respect, and certainly just our interaction in streets of Jeddah or wherever else we travel to. So I've got to give it to the kingdom for really showing me what this place is really all about.
No, I was going to say we met a number of Italian couples, British couples. We met a number of, again, other Western tourists that, again, it appears that they were saying, you know, they now know that the visas are available. You know, there is a campaign going on. I know I see it in Dubai where you see the big Visit Saudi signs. And again, it seems to me that it's a matter of people just need to experience it, allay whatever those preconceptions are. And then again, going back to what you had said that, you know, these preconceptions have been formed. So my question to you is now, having been here for a week, are they all wrong?
Well, they're all wrong, but what the people that we met from Europe or the U.S. or from elsewhere, coming to a country that is beginning to blossom, that's just opened up its doors to the world, is still the unknown and the fear factor have to be overcome. And I think your podcast and what you're doing uh, today, and being a pioneer and getting the word out and showing the world what this country is all about, will alleviate those fears. Okay, they'll put them aside. They'll people be more relaxed. And again, I say, if it meets the criteria for vacationing, it has to be considered because there's really no place like it. And from our discussion yesterday, the things that are being invested in this country is unbelievable, and that's gonna come to fruition. And when it does, year after year, it's only going to get better and better.
Couldn't agree more. So again, you mentioned the allaying concerns, allaying fears. Have any of your fears been allayed? And do you now, as we end the trip today, you know, very quickly in a grand summary from moment one of exiting the plane to moment two hopping on the plane, have your perceptions been shattered? And what's your final sort of quick summary on Saudi Arabia? Is it the place you thought it was?
Uh, it it wasn't the place I thought it was, but I never thought it was a bad place. And so where it is today, I will say that it took extraordinary vision. It took vision by the crown prince, certainly the king, that brought people together in this country to invest together in the infrastructure, in hospitality, in the attractions, in the security for people's well-being. And what they ask is just respect the culture when you arrive, and the country is yours then. There's no inhibitions about things here, and it's a testament. Again, I just want to highlight how difficult that is to for a government to get involved so dynamically with these different sectors to build a thriving tourist industry. It's not an easy thing to do.
Khaled talked about the pillars and how each of these pillars have to be built properly to build something like what they're building. Absolutely.
And you're living it at in the United Arab Emirates. Um, but this here is bigger. It's bigger because there's much more to offer. And as much as we enjoy going to the Emirates, and it's a lovely place, and they've done wonderful things there, and it continues to thrive. This here is another destination, should be a destination for everybody around the world to come and enjoy. And again, when you build the tourist industry, those are the important things that you have to address, and they're doing it. There was no sense of uh, of crime. There was no sense of being worried about getting pickpocketed or rolled down the street. There was none of that. And in fact, when we needed help and assistance, there was somebody there that would offer their cell phone or their home or their car, or some level of assistance. Absolutely, it's a testament to the peoples here.
Yeah, I think couldn't have said it better myself. The experience and everything. As an American, maybe final question before we then conclude. As an American, particularly, did you at any time feel like any sort of animosity with people, or just speak to being an American here? Were you welcomed? Were people happy to have you as a guest? Yeah. What was that? What was the cultural experience with the people?
Like I said, it all blends in together where it's just been extraordinary. Um, what I like to see is a little bit more eating establishments in the old city, but that's all coming. So that's why I cannot wait for my next visit here. Um, just talking about the people are extraordinary people. They're proud people, and I think the young population, as well as the older population, want to showcase, this great place, this great country.
And I think what's so interesting as well from my perspective, having been here now 8 years in a row, starting 2016, is seeing the palpable energy as well, and the transformation, the evolution really of the country, and what the initiative is, and how everybody is buying into and excited about. We want to show the world our culture, which, as you mentioned, is phenomenal. The hospitality, the everything. We never had anybody not try to bend over backwards to help us out with anything. Whether that was getting everything set up here, right? We had long conversations with Muayyad in the hotel and everything. People have always been more than welcoming. So couldn't agree more with your sentiments. And I think interesting as well for me to hear your, as your first experience here in Saudi, what that was like. So really appreciate sharing your thoughts. Any final thoughts for the audience, comments, anything you want to add?
I want to say I'm really happy and I'm proud of what you're doing with your podcast. You and Vlad have worked extremely hard. Some of the technical difficulties is something new that you got to go through and experience. But your messaging, what you're doing, is on the right track. What you're showcasing here, like you've showcased during your podcast, is good reporting. It's solid reporting. It's unbiased news, unless you identify it as being opinion. You identify, where your opinion is, but facts are the facts. And the fact here, our experience is just world class. So being here with you and all your listeners and viewers, I couldn't been more prouder of what you're accomplishing.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, God willing.
God, inshallah.
And
Inshallah,
well,
please say.
inshallah, that's right.
Exactly. Well, Dad, really appreciate you being willing to come on the podcast. It was an amazing trip. As always, great time spending time with you. But then from the podcast perspective, great to have you on. Hope to have you on in the future. Got a lot of opinions, a lot of experiences, a lot of insight. So looking forward to getting more of that in the future.
Let's do that. Thank you, Sean.
Excellent. Excellent. Done.